Welcome to the December 22nd Christmas Proptacular, as we're calling it. Only the strong survive all the way to Christmas is why Arjun and I are here. Brad and Judah, pour a little out for them. They'll be here in spirit. We'll try and mention angles that we might think they would agree with. But it's gonna be great. We're gonna go through every single game. We're gonna talk about at least one prop for every single game, and get you out of here nice and quick so that you can go enjoy your family. Let's read. All right, AJ. I think what it is Southern California is it's a little different something in the air, and that's why we're here. And Brad and Judah on the East Coast couldn't quite make it. But there's nothing better than 3 straight days of football, especially when you can get some money down. So we can't technically in California, but hopefully most of you can. And so we want to make sure that we've got you full of opportunities for investment this Christmas. We will, just a programming note, as we've mentioned, we're not going to do the normal Sunday night pod. We will tweet out our lines that we've guessed and any bets that we're going to place so that we share that content with the group, but we will not be doing a live pod at the end of either Sunday or Monday night. And then we'll be back on Wednesday evening. So we're doing this instead. I think it will be great. Arjun is kind of the prop king anyways, so it sort of makes sense that we're here. And of course, we did record a show on Wednesday, me, Brad, and Judah, and we've got all the normal stuff there. So, AJ, any programming notes before we get into it?
No, I'm excited. This is a pretty big slate, so let's hop into it.
Let's do it. Okay, so we're going to start. We're going to go game by game and talk about them. Arjun will lead off, and then I will come in and close it out, and we'll just go from there. So we've got game numero uno, little Steelers and Bengals Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, so my favorite here, we're going back to the well, fading the Cincinnati's pass defense against tight end. So we're taking Pat Freiermuth over 25.5 receiving yards, minus 115 is the best line on DraftKings. Standard play. I like targeting tight ends with backup quarterbacks. Mason Rudolph is the third string quarterback. We saw Hawkinson, I think, have close to 70 yards last week against the Bengals with Nick Mullins at quarterback. So I think this is a good spot for them. And yeah, Steelers really need to bounce back in hopes of keeping their playoff dreams alive.
Yeah, I like where your head is at. So I'm going to the other side of the ball, and so our guy T. Higgins, I don't think is the most popular dude in the locker room over there. Would just be kind of the way that I would view it. So I think there are a couple angles here. The first is looking at Deontay Johnson. So Deontay Johnson, as you can see here, is going to, on the other side of the ball, have a pretty favorable matchup against the Bengals coverage unit. His passing prop on FanDuel is 44.5 receiving yards. George Pickens is 43.5 receiving yards. You tell me which one is in a better spot right now in Pittsburgh. I don't think this is going to be a game necessarily that the Steelers can just run the ball. I think they are going to have to throw it a little bit because the Bengals offense has been decent. So I like that angle. I also think we talked about this a little bit on Wednesday. If you look at a Jalen Warren or a Najee Harris, I think there are some interesting options there. So Jalen Warren at 45.5 receiving yards. I also like rushing. Yeah. The over there, the run defense for Cincinnati has not been solid. So those are where I'm looking in this game.
Yeah, I like the Warren over. They just lost DJ Reader for the season, who's their best run defender as well. So I like that angle.
Yes, big fan. Okay, look how quickly we're moving here. Buffalo and the Los Angeles Clippers, your Los Angeles Clippers. Arjun, I almost asked you if you were going to go to this game on Saturday night. NBC's calling it. Our boss, Chris Collinsworth, calling the game. So if you want to go see a bloodbath, let me know. might be able to hook you up. There may be tickets available. I have a hunch. There may be tickets.
They are pretty cheap. I was looking to go to this game at the beginning of the season, but yeah, I could not care less. But yeah, my angle for this game, Josh Palmer over 39.5 receiving yards. He is the bona fide number one option in this offense. And Chargers are 12.5 point underdogs. They're most likely going to have to be throwing for most of the game. And while I do think the Buffalo pass defense has improved, I think just because of the volume that the Chargers will have to throw, and because Palmer is a much better receiver than any other receiver on the roster, I think he'll get enough targets to really just go over to hit 40 yards. So I like Palmer over 39.5 minus 115.
Yes, solid. I have a couple angles here that I think are interesting. The first is James Cook. Over 26.5 receiving yards against a Los Angeles Chargers defense, which has been fairly lost for most of the season. We've been focusing on his rushing. He's been used more and more as a receiver of late, which I think makes a lot of sense. The other angle that I like on the other side of the ball is Easton Stick. Easton Stick is passing yardage total is at 208.5 yards. They are going to be losing in this game, if you consider the spread to be predictive in any way, shape, or form, by a lot. They have no running backs that I think there's any reason to be confident in whatsoever. In Los Angeles, they've been talking about Isaiah Spiller getting run, which I think could be an interesting one. But I would assume that the passing volume he'll get will be such that he'll get over 208.5. Those are the two I like. I think I would lean towards the James Cook angle. What do you think?
Yeah, I would lean towards Cook as well. The Chargers' pass defense is horrific, to say the least.
Has not been great. And you said yours was, what did you get Palmer at?
39.5.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Maybe a little stick Palmer combo could work out. Yeah, I like where your head is at. All right, we go now to Sunday. First game on the Sunday slate. We have our Colts. Somehow, the Colts are underdogs to Taylor Heineke, Arthur Smith, and the Atlanta Falcons. We're talking props. This is what we're doing on this podcast. But I have to say, Arjun, I do not understand this line.
Yeah, I don't either. I do know there's some, tout businesses that have given out the Falcons that are pretty notable, and I think that's moved the line a little bit, but I cannot understand it. And so my prop for this game is going to be my guy Josh Downs over 37.5 receiving yards on FanDuel. You can look at the lineup thing here. Mike Hughes in the slot, 52.7 PFF coverage grade. The Colts will get Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman back for this game. I don't think that matters as much because I think AJ Terrell, who is the Falcons' best cover corner, is going to shadow Pittman. He's done that in numerous games this year, like against Calvin Ridley, and I think they should do it against Pittman, which leaves, Downs as the best option in terms of, who he's going to go up against. So I like Downs. He has a great matchup. He's broken out in the past. He hasn't done as well recently, but I think this is a game where you can really target the Falcons' weak links.
Has Pittman, wasn't he was injured in some way, shape, or form?
Gardner Minshew basically had him murdered last week, and then and that got KZ suspended for the rest of the year.
Yeah, that'll do it. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so a couple of thoughts here. The first, and I don't see these live anywhere, and I'm guessing the reason for that is that there's some question as to whether Jonathan Taylor is going to play or not in this game. I kind of don't think that he will. But the interior of the Colts, very, very strong. They have a great defensive line. I'm going to go Bijan Robinson under 59.5 rushing yards in this game. I do think they'll have to throw the ball here to win. And I would guess that the Colts will look at this game and go, you know what? We're going to make Taylor Heineke beat us. That and the simple fact that Tyler Algier, who is beloved by Arthur Smith, his rushing prop is 35.5. and
Mhm.
the odds at 59.5. Like, it's just hilarious. So I love Bijan. Don't love the way Arthur Smith uses him. So I'm going under.
Love that.
All right. We are cruising. Seattle, Tennessee. The return of Ryan Tannehill and probably of Geno Smith as well.
Yeah. Gino comes back again. I'm not sure how much that really changes the Seattle offense, but one prop I'm looking at, Kenneth Walker over 61.5 rush yards. I think they haven't had Charbonnet for a week or two, and Walker's really taken on a bigger load in the run game. We typically know Tennessee is having one of the better run defenses in the league. This year, they're closer to league average. And I think just because of the sheer volume, Seattle is also 3.5-point favorites. I think even if Gino comes back, I feel like Pete Carroll's conservative, game planning will want to keep the ball out of his hands and in the hands of Kenneth Walker, who rushed for 80 something yards last week. So I think just because of the volume aspect and because Seattle should be winning this game, I like Walker over 61.5.
So the Tennessee Titans are 28th ranked coverage unit. Their outside corners, very, very poor, all 90th or below graded. You can see on the screen, including Avery at 109th, which is not great, 102nd coverage grade. And DK Metcalf, who now with Geno back, I think DK looked pretty darn healthy and spry in that Eagles game. But with Geno, I expect the target share to be focused more on Metcalf now that he's back. And so I really like Metcalf. His receiving prop is at 66.5. I like that. I also like the over on receptions at 4.5. You can find both of those on FanDuel. And I like some alts here as well. Thinking just about I really like the Seahawks in this game with Geno kind of returning.
Yeah.
And Ryan Tannehill, I know that his ankle is probably better, but I would be very concerned given their offensive line.
Yeah.
All right. We are on to Minnesota, the Jared Goff, Nick Mullins battle that we've all been waiting for. Should be good.
Yeah. So this game, I love the Lions offense, but one thing I will be fading, David Montgomery, his longest rush under 13.5. He's actually landed on 13 in the past 3 games, like exactly. One of the things with the Vikings defense, PFF Timo Risque put this out on Twitter. They're just so unique in terms of they have the lowest average depth of like lining up close to the line of scrimmage for their linebackers. They love to, line up 7 or 8 guys on the line of scrimmage. It makes it tough to kind of hit that second level because, guards and centers aren't able to get up to those reach blocks. And Montgomery just isn't like a very explosive runner. And, the Vikings have allowed the second least amount of explosive plays. I think they've allowed the lowest number of explosive runs or runs of 10 plus yards on the season. So just combining Montgomery's lack of explosiveness with how the Vikings play defense, I like his under 13.5, a little bit juiced, but I still like it.
Yeah. I like where your head is at there as well. So I think there are a couple of sort of interesting angles here. The first is the Detroit Lions from a rushing defense perspective have actually been decent. I don't see a lot live for Chandler and Madison. I think there's some questions whether Madison's going to play. But the interesting thing here is looking at the receiving props for, say, Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson's line in this game is 82.5 receiving yards. They're an underdog in this game, as they should be. They're playing a team that is way better defending the run than defending the pass. And it's Justin freaking Jefferson. Like I thought he looked his normal self. So this is, I would say, 15 yards short of probably where it would be if he had been playing the whole season. I think this is absolutely ridiculous. And so I love Justin Jefferson. A bonus one for you. Amon-Ra St. Brown has not been his normal self of late against a blitz-heavy Brian Flores team. I would see this being the space for him to really break out. Again, 6.5 receptions. Is heavily juiced, so I would go more towards the 78.5 receiving yards. But I love Justin Jefferson in this matchup.
Yeah.
It's like his prop last week was like, I thought it was like, and it closed like 95.
Yeah, it was pretty high, I think.
So I don't understand the adjustment there. All right, we are on to, oh God. We have to talk about this game. The New York Jets and the Washington Wizards. Jordan Poole, I think, is playing quarterback for Washington, and Trevor Siemian for the New York Football Jets.
Yeah, this one was tough. It was tough to really find something I like, but one thing I did write down: Sam Howell over 13.5 rush yards, minus 117 on Caesars. Just the Jets defensive line should eat. Howell's going to be under duress a lot. And I think just because of how the Jets are a little bit, I would say they can be a little bit like, what's the word? Undisciplined when it comes to the rush lanes, which should open up rushing lanes for Howell. Howell has been running a lot more lately. I think he's had like 20 yards in each of the last 2 games. And I think just because he got benched last week, he might have something to prove. He might, be more prone to running, taking more hits, diving for those extra yards. So I just like the matchup here where I think Washington's offensive line is going to get dominated, which should leave Howell should be looking to run more instead of, having clean pockets to throw from.
By the way, the interception props for both quarterbacks, the yes for Sam Howell, minus 190, and for Trevor Siemian is minus 170.
Yes.
Absolutely hilarious and incredible. Look, I think there's a very interesting, the Trevor Siemian is not very good. Let me be extremely clear. But I'm not sure that the Commanders, who have been really brutal at covering the pass, I think this is a spot. Judah's not here. I think this is an interesting spot if you're thinking about a real contrarian, place where there's a decent amount of passing to be had. The Rams diced him up. Obviously, Trevor Siemian is not Matt Stafford, and these receivers are not the Rams, but I think that's an interesting place to look. And you look at where Siemian is at, he's at 207 and a half. Sam Howell actually has a higher passing prop at 216.5, and he's facing a real defense. So I do like Siemian. I know it's super contrarian, but yeah, I think this defense is just really, really rough and not in a very great spot. So I don't like this game at all. I would probably stay away from this. I think this is the place that I liked the props. And I just don't think you get a ton of value. I mean, going under on these games, like when everyone is, saying it's going to be low scoring, there's not a ton of value to be had there.
Yeah.
So you're better off finding something that is actually going to go over and going there. You are the Jets guy, Arjun, so rely on you.
Yeah, I do like that play, and I have been trying to fade Washington secondary most of the year, and it has worked out well. So I like the passing yards over in that one.
They are atrocious. The Fighting David Teppers are hosting the Green Bay Packers. Arjun, would you go here?
So this one's going to be interesting. I promise you, this is going to be like the A.T. Perry prop, but it's like it's flipped. It's going to be DJ Chark, longest reception over 14.5 yards. Just like weirdly, like I stumbled across this prop a couple weeks ago, and I've been betting it every week, and it's hit. And I'm just going to go back to it because the Packers have, everyone talks about Joe Barry like he's one of the worst defensive coordinators in the league. Which, if you look at the numbers, they haven't been good. They've allowed the second most explosive plays in the league. They have the 5th most explosive passes allowed of 20 plus yards. DJ Chark's longest reception prop is 14.5. We literally just need a 15-yard reception. His average up to target is the highest of any receiver on the team. And all it takes is one, and he has that big playability to really, take the top off of defense. But mostly it's going to be like one of those intermediate passes that Bryce Young hits out of structure. So I like DJ Chark over 14.5.
Yeah, I think that's compelling. I actually looked at kind of the other side of this. The Packers have not been tremendous from a defensive perspective, but I looked at the other side of the ball. I wish there were more clarity on the kind of weapons for the Packers. So I do think there's some opportunity here, but it doesn't look like Dontavian Wicks is going to play. I don't know if you have any insight on that, Arjun, in terms of who's going to actually play.
No, I didn't see anything about that yet.
Okay. So here's where I'm going with this one, which is I'm going under on Miles Sanders rushing. I went under on Miles Sanders rushing for the season. I think last week, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, he had like 6 carries for like -6 yards. Chuba Hubbard owns this backfield. I would, assuming that they're losing in this game, probably not a ton of reason to run the ball anyways, but Hubbard has actually played well, whereas Miles Sanders has been a nightmare. Miles Sanders has the 54th highest rushing grade in the league, and Chuba Hubbard, as you can see there on the screen, has actually been decent. He's 15th. So I'm going to go with Miles Sanders under. I think it's 21.5 rushing yards. He might need 10 carries to get there, and he ain't getting 10 carries.
Yeah. No, I really like that one. Before we jump to the next game, like I talked about it on Twitter. Like the Panthers paid Miles Sanders the highest free agent contract in external running back. They gave the most amount of money to an external free agent running back this year, and I mean he's getting benched for Chuba Hubbard, so it is what it is.
There was never a bigger lock than guy going from running behind the best offensive line in the NFL and being overpaid to go play on the worst team in the NFL, going under his total in the season.
Yeah.
Will he even get to half of that? I don't know. But that's why you place bets in the offseason. All right. Cleveland and Houston. I guess we don't know, or we do kind of know about CJ Stroud. It looks like it's going to be Case Keenum. Mm-hmm. But we do get Nico Collins in this game, which I do think matters.
Yeah, so this is probably going to be the juiciest prop I give out. It's Case Keenum over 0.5 interceptions. And we can see on the screen, he had a 43.8 passing grade last week, so he wasn't good. Did throw like one of the most egregious pick sixes of the season. But another reason, the Browns force a turnover-worthy play on over 6% of their dropbacks, which is the highest of any defense in the league. They forced 28 turnover-worthy plays in this season as a defense. And one of the things we know, turnover-worthy plays are something that are a little bit more stable than interception. So the Browns are forcing defenses or forcing QBs to put the ball in harm's way via throwing or fumbling. Obviously, we're looking for the interception here, which is why it's super juice. But we've seen the Browns kind of take the ball away at will. I guess the one thing that scares me is the home road splits, like you talked about on Sunday. Mm-hmm. But again, it's Case Keenum. I don't think it matters that much, and I'd be willing to lay the juice on this one, minus 145.
I like it. I have a juicy prop as well. So this one is plus 230. This is on FanDuel. And it's kind of a similar narrative to yours. I think Case Keenum, not very good. The Cleveland Browns defense is very good, but they struggle a little bit in terms of stop. They miss a lot of tackles in the run game. That is the weaker part. We've seen that. We've seen Jalen Warren, rumble. So this for a long touchdown is what I meant to say in that sentence. And I think Devin Singletary, clearly the best running back in the Houston Texans backfield, but also their best pass catching running back. Mm-hmm. I think that is important because when under pressure, if we're looking for some quick passing game, getting it, there's no Tank Dell, obviously, getting it to Devin Singletary. So it's Devin Singletary to have the most combined rushing and receiving yards, plus 230. Think that he could do this with just rushing, given the kind of low-scoring nature of the game, but also if he catches a few passes to combine there for say 100 yards, like I think that gets him to the window. So I like it. He is the favorite, in that market, mm-hmm. But I do like getting. I think you could go with his overs, but I would prefer to play it this way and getting basically one.
Yeah, no, that's a great look. Did not think about that.
We are on to Tampa Bay. Trevor Lawrence practiced today, but is still in the protocol. That is something that can be the case. So he is not out of the woods yet. He has never missed a start. He played with a really bashed up ankle. Whether he can overcome the concussion protocol, unclear, but I'm not betting against him. It looks like the market is moving that way with Tampa Bay now a 2.5-point favorite. It doesn't look like they think that he's going to play. Although I would say if you knew it was CJ Beathard for sure, this would be 3 or have crossed 3. So I think they're saying there's still a chance.
Yeah, completely agree. So my prop for this game, Cade Otton over 22.5 receiving yards. The Jags have allowed the 5th most receiving yards to tight ends this year. Just watch Isaiah Likely kind of tear them up on Sunday Night Football to the tune of 5 catches for 70 yards. Otton's line is ridiculously low. Like this is how it's kind of been all season, and he's kind of gone over in a good way. And so I like Cade Otton. I think it only really takes 2 catches, and I think the Jags defense has struggled a little bit of late, especially when it comes to allowing explosive plays.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a return of a bet that I have talked about a few times. This is the most underrated receiver in the National Football League. His name is Mike Evans. So Chris Godwin did not practice yesterday. I don't know. I don't have the practice report offhand right now, but he is banged up. He had a huge game last week, and there's a chance he doesn't play. Now, Darius Williams has played well. You can see on the screen, left corner back there. Darius Williams is shorter than I am. I'm not exactly a giant. Mike Evans is a giant. And on the other side of things, he's got a corner in Monteric Brown, who has not performed very well. So I really like Mike Evans. He and Chris Godwin have basically the same receiving yardage prop. This is a heresy. Should not be the case. Mike Evans over 66.5 receiving yards is an absolute joke and disrespectful to one of the better receivers in the National Football League. I also like playing his alts in Mike Evans. We trust.
Yes, sir. Plus, Baker has been baking, so I do like that a lot.
Turned into Tom Brady last week.
Yes.
Arizona and Chicago. I feel so. Tell me what you think. This game, everyone's going to overlook it. I think this has the chance to be a super crazy, wacky, fun game. The weather is actually decent. It's 47, just overcast. Both quarterbacks running around. I feel like this has the makings of an actually very entertaining game that no one is considering. I'll probably be wrong, but that's my take.
No, I think that's right. And I mean, both quarterbacks I think could be playing for their futures, even though I think Kyler is definitely more secure, which is why I'm going DJ Moore over 65.5 receiving yards. Cardinals, their secondary's gotten torched all year. I mean, look at the screen, like Starling Thomas, 48.7 PFF grade. And then Antonio Hamilton, who's kind of played safety, I feel like, for most of his career. And he's got kicked out to wide corner. So not very good. And they've struggled against wide receiver ones for most of the year. Chicago at home, still in the playoff race. So they kind of need to be good on offense. And I think being good on offense involves getting DJ Moore the ball. So I really like DJ Moore taking advantage of a pretty bad secondary.
He's been much better than I think he's maybe ever been in Carolina, which sucks for Carolina, obviously. So I think there are a couple of interesting angles here. So playing for his job, like Justin Fields running the football, makes a lot of sense. I'm not seeing a rushing attempt prop for him, but I do think that's a compelling one. I also don't see one for Kyler, which I don't understand why that is the case. But I think both of those are interesting. I'm actually going to go to the receiving side for the Arizona Cardinals and look at Trey McBride. Trey McBride, I think you could make a case, has been the best tight end in the NFL, certainly over the past 5 weeks. And while the Chicago Bears have gotten a lot of praise for their defense, I'm going to go to an old adage, which is I'm going to amend and not say defense doesn't matter, but that defense is more of a function of the offenses that you play. And so I'm going to go ahead and bet on Trey McBride to be the number one target of Kyler Murray. He is getting the volume, but also I think he functions a little bit more as a receiver for them than as a traditional tight end. So I like over 61.5 receiving yards for Trey McBride in this game. I think he honestly might be their best vertical threat. Certainly with Hollywood Brown being a little hampered. So Trey McBride over 61.5 receiving yards. You can go over 70 at plus 128 or over 80 at plus 188. Like both of those as well.
Yeah, no, I love that. And yeah, he's definitely been Kyler's favorite target. So he should get a lot of volume against a not so great Bears linebacking room.
Yeah, they've played decently, but I think that has more to do with where the offenses have been that they've been playing. All right, we have a good game that everyone is expecting to be a good game, which is Dallas and Miami.
Yeah, so having anytime touchdown prop, we're going Raheem Mostert to score a touchdown. I'm seeing minus 118 on ESPN bet, minus 125 on FanDuel. So I like it at both of those prices. I mean, this guy scored I think the most touchdowns of any team in the league. We just saw the Cowboys run defense get absolutely destroyed by the Bills. I mean, it's just Miami's at home. I feel like McDaniel's also realizing like he can run the ball inside the 5. And we saw that clip of him like, oh, like I shouldn't be calling a fade on third down. Like I think he's figuring out like what works and what isn't. And I mean, yeah, Cowboys run defense is the weak part of their defense. So I think they lean on the run game a little bit more. And especially inside the red zone, they give it to the guy who scored the most touchdowns instead of Achan, who's, you know, a little bit hurt and has that heel injury.
Yes. I think there is an angle here to fade a little Devon Achan. I can't do it out of principle. Okay. Can't do it out of just solely how much I love the guy. But I do think there are some interesting things to consider here. So one is an under that is probably not one that anyone has bet this entire season, and that is CeeDee Lamb. The angle that I'm playing here is that Jalen Ramsey is going to shadow him. I just don't think there is any reason for the Miami Dolphins to let CeeDee Lamb beat them. Now, you may want to wait until you watch the first couple plays of this game and see if Jalen Ramsey is tracking him, and then bet the live under kind of quickly. That's where I would go. His current total is 90.5 receiving yards. I'm sorry. Like, I understand that against, you know, in any situation. I just think this is one that probably doesn't warrant that high of a number. So even though it sounds heretical, under on CeeDee Lamb, I would probably wait to bet it live. But if you're not going to remember, I think you can go with that kind of right off the bat. The other angle that I do like in this game, Judah talked about it on Wednesday, but if you missed it, I'm going to go over it here again. We track how much separation corners give up. Deron Bland has a very high grade because of the interceptions that he has. He has been getting roasted. I think he is going to get roasted in this game, whether it's Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill. Now, Tyreek coming back from an injury, I think is a nice spot to potentially bet him. I think he looked really good. I think they held him out last game because they wanted to save him up for this game. His receiving total is at 86.5 receiving yards. He's been averaging 120. So this is clearly an adjustment for, do you think he's hurt? Do you think there's a chance he doesn't finish this game? I don't think there's a chance. I think he's good to go. I think he wraps up and goes bananas in this game. Stephon Gilmore, very good corner, but not against Tyreek Hill. Like, the speed here is, I think, the different element. Both of these guys, I think, are going to have a lot of problems. And I actually think that while people assume that the Dolphins are going to be able to run the ball, I think they're going to be able to pass the ball really well also. So Tyreek Hill over 86.5. The fact, Arjun, that CeeDee Lamb has a higher receiving yards total than Tyreek Hill is it's not okay. Okay, we can't let that happen.
Yeah, no, I love that, and yeah, I'm with you that I think the Dolphins offense rolls, and it's going to roll through Tyreek this week.
All right, we're getting last game, the Sunday night game on Sunday. It is New England and Denver. Denver now a 7-point favorite in Colorado.
Yeah. So this is one I honestly don't really understand the line, but I can kind of reason it with it. It's Cortland Sutton, longest reception over 20.5. Like, Cortland Sutton is just like, he just catches moon balls from Russell Wilson. It's like every week he has a long play out of structure. And the reason I kind of like, okay, like maybe this line is low is because Bill Belichick, you know, just historically has taken away number one options. Like, I should have taken Kelsey under last week once I heard his press conference, but yeah, I worry a little bit about Belichick potentially running a 1-double against Sutton. But again, we're only looking for one catch here. And while the Patriots have been a really good run defense, they have a lot of 45 passes of 20+ yards, which is kind of like league average. A lot of their corners also kind of small, and they're not that good. Alex Austin, 52.7 coverage grade. Jonathan Jones is 5'10", and he's probably their best corner, but Cortland Sutton 6'5". So we just need one, you know, typical Sutton Moss catch or a long play down the field, which I think we'll get in this game. And I know Sean Payton's probably going to take the ball out of Russ's hands as much as possible, but again, we're only looking for one, and Patriots have allowed a good amount of explosive passes through the air.
Yeah, it's a very good point. So a couple of interesting ones. One that you mentioned kind of is the Bill Belichick taking away number one options. And I'm kind of interested in Russell Wilson rushing this week. The total that I'm seeing right now is 19.5 rushing yards. It just feels like one of those games where, you know, I do think he latches on to Cortland Sutton, and for good reason, because the rest of the receiving core is not very good. And so I like over 19.5 for him. I also am fading Javonte Williams in this game. He's been not very good this year. And the New England Patriots been a pretty decent run defense. His total of 53.5 receiving yards. So I'm kind of fading the narrative that this is just like a walkaway win for the Denver Broncos, which the Denver Broncos have not been nearly as good. They're 5-8 against the spread, 7-7 overall. And Javonte Williams has not been very good. So I am fading Javonte, even though I like him personally.
What was his line again? 48.5?
53.5.
Oh, 50. Yeah. Okay. I like that's pretty high.
It's not okay. Christmas morning, we have Raiders. Christmas morning, Christmas afternoon. It'll be morning for me and Arjun.
Yes.
Raiders and Chiefs.
Yeah. With this one, we're going Isaiah Pacheco anytime touchdown plus 110. But returning from injury, I know Edwards-Helaire looked actually decent in his stead, but this is Pacheco's backfield. When Pacheco was healthy, he was getting 18, 19 carries, scored the last 2 weeks before he got hurt, including 2 touchdowns against the Raiders the last time they played. I think Chiefs offense will be able to move the ball at will. And even though I think, Max Crosby has the potential to tear up any game plan, I just think Chiefs will have enough red zone opportunities. They have been running the ball more inside. And I think Pacheco is the kind of guy in that role. And getting it at plus money, obviously, is a big help there.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think they held Pacheco out again. I think he could have played, and they held him out in that game simply to make sure that he was healthy.
Yes.
His total is at 61.5. I thought that was pretty interesting. I think there's some other interesting ones here. I went to the well on this one last week, and it worked out very well. That was Justin Watson. So last week we got Justin Watson, Arjun, at 15.5 receiving yards.
I took that also.
An absolute joke. I mean, this is hilarious. Now, his total this week, 19.5 receiving yards. Okay, good. They're adjusting a little bit. Justin Watson is very clearly the number 2 receiver in this offense. Valdez-Scantling is terrible. Kadarius Toney is terrible. And Rashee Rice is probably going to start getting a little more love. So when you think about the disparity of the totals here, Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice both at 66 and 67.5 respectively, and then Watson's down at 19.5. I don't think that accurately represents how Mahomes is spreading the ball out at this point. And I think he's gaining a little bit of confidence in Justin Watson. That's just what I see. Anyways, so I'm going over on Justin Watson, going back to the well on our guy, Justin Watson, 19.5.
Yep, I like that. And, make sure to shop around. I think you can find some stray 17.5s out there. But yeah,
some people
I really like that as well.
Not everyone is a member of the printing press. All right, Giants and Eagles Monday.
Yeah, so with this one, it's kind of a scheme or like football scheme type play. I'm going to take DeAndre Swift, longest reception under 9.5 yards. He has gone to the under pretty often this year, but also just like we know Wink Martindale is going to blitz. We know he's going to send 7 or 8 a lot to try and speed up Hurts. We've also talked, if you follow any like Philly beat writers or our friend Sam Schwartz, like they've talked about how the Eagles have really struggled against cover 0 just because they don't have a plan for it. And against cover 0, you need your tight ends, you need your running backs to chip or to at least block, right? So even if he's on the field, he's most likely going to be blocking rather than receiving. And even if he is receiving a pass, it's most likely going to be a play where the Giants are in man coverage and they have a linebacker right there. So even if he does catch a pass, I don't think he goes longer than 9 yards. And just from a schematic perspective, I think playing against a blitz heavy team doesn't make it easy for opponent running backs to have any success.
Yeah. What was the number that you got on that again?
I got under 9.5 minus 116. I'm seeing best line.
I like that. Okay. So I will not give up. I will never give up on Tommy DeVito. That's just not going to happen. The secondary for the Philadelphia Eagles stinks. It's not very good. So 182 as a passing yardage total is disrespectful to Tommy DeVito. It's just disrespectful. Yes. I don't understand where this is coming from. I get that the low end of variance is definitely high. You'll take a ton of sacks. Sure. But what are they going to do? Run the ball? Like, let's be real. So I like over there. Also, Arjun, you called out Tommy DeVito's rushing yardage prop last week. I like it again this week. I don't know how they don't drop back 40 times in this game. I just don't see their ability to run the ball in this game being anything. So that means Tommy D, a lot of dropbacks. He'll probably take 10 sacks, but he'll scramble around as well. So those are the two I like. All right, Super Bowl preview. Niners,
Yes,
Ravens. I've got to ask you, Arjun. We talked about this a little bit on Sunday. Where are you at right now in this game overall?
Yeah, I think Niners roll, especially their offense. I just don't see any way the Ravens really stop them. And it's tough to beat this iteration of the Niners offense with everyone healthy.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I'm betting Niners alts.
Yes.
And I am a Niners fan, so that should tell you a little something. I generally don't like to bet on my team if I can avoid it. All right, where are you going with this one?
Yeah, real quick. Also, we have the Boston Scott 13-1, 12-1 touchdown prop riding from we made sure to give it out at 12-1. You know, I know the lines moved. Some people got it at 10. Hopefully, I think there's no value betting it at 3-1 now. So don't chase or don't try to like get in on the fun. Like there'll be other opportunities, but that's a fun one. I hope hopefully a lot of people are able to get in when we signaled it in the Discord. But yeah, for this game, this is an interesting one, and I hate it, but I'm fading Lamar. I'm taking his under 59.5 rushing yards. I want to point out, I think if I watched that 49ers-Eagles game again where 49ers just demolished them, Jalen Hurts had 7 carries for 20 yards. If you looked at how the Niners played them, it was a lot of QB contained. Nick Bosa wasn't even trying to get to Hurts, and they were just trying to keep him in the pocket. Hurts had a 3.85 average time to throw. Like that is exceptionally high. I think they come out with a similar game plan for Lamar, just try to keep him contained in the pocket. And while I do think Lamar will have the designed rush attempts, I think the lack of scramble is because of how I envision the Niners playing defense against him will kind of limit the rushing opportunities that Lamar gets. So I'm taking Lamar under 59.5 rushing yards. I hate it, but we got to do it.
Yeah. I think that's a smart play. That's a high number of rushing yards, especially for a team that doesn't like doing a lot of designs anymore, right? It's a lot of scrambles. So I kind of have a couple of angles similar to that. The first is we've talked a lot about how good Fred Warner is covering tight ends. Isaiah Likely total right now is at 38.5 receiving yards, 3.5 receptions. You can get under 3.5 receptions at plus money, which I think is interesting. Now there might be a volume issue if the Niners are up by a lot. So that's one angle to consider. But I also don't want to overthink this. And I think one way to avoid overthinking it is this: Brock Purdy and this Niners offense to beat a good defense. Like offense usually beats good defenses. They're completely healthy and they're playing at home. Brock Purdy over 1.5 passing touchdowns is minus 138. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You can get an alt 3 plus at plus 280. And his passing yards total 252.5. But my favorite is to load up on over 1.5. You can get it like minus 135. I don't know exactly where the yardage will go. My hypothesis on the Wednesday pod was that this is an Ayuk game versus Samuel game, just because of the way that the Ravens are constructed. And I think Kyle Hamilton probably try and get him, in a spot to play more on Deebo Samuel if they can, especially in the slot. So I think this is an Ayuk game. I think Marlon Humphrey's only graded 56 out of 119 so far this year. Ayuk best at separating in the entire league thus far. I guess a bunch of angles in this game. How do you feel about the likely one out of curiosity, given what we know about their passing offense right now?
Yeah, I do like it. And yeah, Niners have been pretty good against tight ends this year, kind of ranking above league average. I do worry. Trey McBride did go for a lot against them, similar with a mobile quarterback. I think just because of how Lamar commands defenses respect, especially linebackers, I think it makes it hard to kind of predict, the kind of coverage Niners will play on a tight end versus standard dropback passer. So I don't love it, honestly, but it's not one I hate just because we know how good the Niners are stopping tight ends.
Yeah. So that's why I wanted your take on it. I am a much bigger fan of Purdy in this situation. So that'll be my official one. We'll roll with big lock Brock.
Yes.
On Monday night. All right. That was our podcast. Rip through in 45 minutes every single game. Arjun, it was a pleasure. Go enjoy your afternoon. I hear you're driving someone to LAX this evening. So prayers and thoughts for you.
Yeah.
And to everyone that watched, we appreciate you. If you were here live, if you caught up on this Christmas Eve, whatever it might be, we hope that you had a wonderful Christmas or whatever that is that you're celebrating. Hopefully you're celebrating some W's on the player prop side of things. We will see you all on Wednesday evening as usual. Peace.